Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. Today, my guest is John Durocher, the Chief Customer Officer for Calix. Calix is an innovative communication service provider platform. It helps their clients master and monetize the complex infrastructure between their subscribers and the cloud. They are also a client that I had the chance to work with and speak at their event in Las Vegas of last year. John has an incredible background. He is such a great guest for this show because he literally was in the early phases of CRM, starting at Accenture in 1989, working on the CRM service line. He was at Accenture for 17 years and then was the Executive Vice President of Customer Success at Salesforce for 16 years, and now at Calix. John and I are talking about how to improve customer experience by also thinking about the back end and how you can improve your organizational structure. We'll be talking about a few different customer experience B2B topics. So many of you keep asking me about B2B customer experience. Please enjoy John Durocher. John, it's so nice to see you. Welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. Where are you calling in from today?
I am in Boston, Massachusetts today on a cold winter day.
Is it pretty chilly today?
Yeah, it's about 25 degrees outside, so full on
Oh,
winter,
wow.
just
Oh,
without the
wow.
snow.
And if I'm not mistaken, are you a runner? Did I get that wrong? Are you an
I'm
exerciser?
a exercise fanatic, but I had knee surgery, so running is on the on the wait list for another month or so.
Oh,
So
okay. Well, a month isn't too bad.
no, cycling, rowing, hiking, I can do all those things. Just running has to wait for a bit.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. I had surgery recently and like not being able to work out hard. It's like torture.
Yeah, that is hard.
Well, it's so nice to see you. I met you in person at your event in Vegas a few months ago, and I just loved meeting your team, your clients, and learning about what you do and learning about you. And I couldn't believe you had been at these other companies doing customer experience so long, starting in 1989. So, for my audience that don't know you, could you just give us the highlights of your career and let's get into Calix and what Calix does?
Sure thing. So, I've only been at three companies in my entire career. The first stop was at Accenture and worked on our CRM practice in financial services and did that. I was a client partner there for 17 years. And then got enamored with this little company called Salesforce back in 2006 and thought, wow, this could be the future. And just guessing and because I like their business model, and how they operated and their technology model. And so I was at Salesforce for 17 years as well. And then I was ready for a change on to the next thing. And Calix is kind of that next thing. Calix is a provider of telecommunications hardware and cloud services to what I would saw is these smaller providers. So we all know the big providers, and we won't name them. But the small providers are these mom and pop places, cooperatives. They started out of telephone companies where rural America didn't have telephones, so they started their own telephone companies, and then or they were electric companies, and now they're providing broadband services. And so that's what we're doing. We're providing both the hardware and the software to run those, but really trying to take it further than that because I think as any customer experiences, if you're just providing an access point, you have a real chance of getting marginalized by somebody else, right? It's going to be a price uh, competition, and so we're encouraging them, and they're really picking this up of providing much more to the customer. So managed services as well.
Yeah,
That's what
and
we're
when I was at
focusing
your
on.
event, a lot of your audience members that were there at the event, they lived on farms. They run farms. They run all kinds of companies, like in the middle of the country, all over the country, rural places. So that was I had never met so many people from all over America.
Yeah. And they're ready to do innovative things. They're not much different than my big customers, other than their staffs are smaller, and they can actually get way closer to the customers than many customers could ever because they live in the same towns. Like they're not giant towns, and But these people generally are running these companies are pillars of the community. And so delivering a good customer experience is really important to them because they'll get called out at the grocery store, at a, a sports game at school or their church. And so they want to deliver that service. It's maybe different than some of the bigger companies who are insulated from their customers in a little bit different way.
Right. So that accountability factor, it matters a lot because that's very embarrassing if, let's say, their client had a bad experience and then, yeah, you're at the soccer game and you get called out.
Yeah, well, they'll just call them up. They know who they are, right? So, they're answering calls from customers because they know the people and they want to deliver a good service. So we're an important provider of those services. So they're counting on us the same way. So, they have high expectations of what we're able to deliver and the experience we're creating for them so that they can in turn create it for their customers.
So let's talk a little bit about customer success and the cloud. From your viewpoint, why was the cloud so, or if you think it was so instrumental in just the explosion of the customer experience technology market? Like, what is it about the cloud that just catapulted the customer experience world into the 21st century?
Well, first off, I'll start with the technical side. So as I said, I was with Accenture and we delivered CRM to a big bank in Canada. It was one of my big projects that I did. And we spent a year building out the infrastructure. So there is no product, there's no service, there's just infrastructure. And that was a year. And it was a big capital outlay. Here comes the cloud. And guess what? That capital outlay related to the infrastructure is zero, right? There's nothing that they had to wait for. They could get that product and really turn it on and start using it today. And I think that was like really appealing to me. Like, wow, how could the economics of that not be appealing to any corporation? So the first thing was around that aspect of it. And then the democratization that it afforded. Meaning, as consumers, we know this. We use Gmail, we use some of the social media platforms, and the experience that everyone has is the same. You don't have to be your personal economic situation doesn't change that experience, right? And so the cloud allows smaller companies to act big because they offer the same services that anybody could use, right? So that those two elements to me were both technology drivers and economic drivers that said, I don't know how this won't be successful, right? And then add to that, as many of these cloud providers, it is a subscription-based model. That was the third thing that really put me over the edge to say, I have to go join this company. I don't know if they'll be successful or not, but in a model where there's a subscription, you can always cancel it. In a big company, when you have a capital outlay for an on-prem solution, the chances of you changing that are very small, right? You've already invested so much, you're in, you can't get out. Now, cloud providers have done a good job of locking people in as well by providing a good service, but it's a little bit different reason. So those are the things that really got me excited about the cloud and what it could possibly do to all kinds of customers in that. And this was so evident when I was working in consulting. We would, procure big projects with big customers. And I thought, wow, if we could just somehow deliver this at scale. And again, you can do that in the cloud. You can really deliver an offering at scale at a much cheaper economic situation. So that was the really reason I was really hooked on the cloud and what it could possibly do in terms of transformation.
I think what's interesting about you is for chief customer officers, generally when you meet a chief customer officer, they don't work for a company that also sells customer experience software. So there's just like more pressure, I think, to really be incredible, to be so customer focused. What are some of the tenets as a leader that you have upheld in your roles? I mean, you've been successful in very high stakes situations. So what are some of the tenets as chief customer officer that you've used?
I mean, putting the customer at the center always and saying, that's great product and from our perspective, but really saying, if I was the customer, what would I do? Right. And I always try and put myself in that CIO, that chief marketing, whoever it is at these GMs that I'm working with and saying, well, would I use it if I was sitting in their shoes and I had to make the decisions, and I really just bring that thought process to our team. And then I also think that it's really important is the opportunity that was afforded me at Salesforce when I was there is we grew from when I was there with 1,000 employees to 80,000 employees, and things are growing quickly. It's easy to get into your silo and to create a fractured customer experience, right? Because everybody's trying to optimize their part of the chain, but there's really no one in many places that owns the experience overall, right? You may market a certain way, sales may, take a different direction, post sales may, and if you put those all together, they're not optimized for the customer. They're optimized how you run your organization, and we've all experienced that. I have one that happened to me dealing with an insurance company that I called them and they're like, well, that's not my department. And I'm like, well, since I don't have your org chart and I only have your number, what am I going to do? Right. And I think we have to think about that experience that we're trying to deliver in those terms, right? Somebody's calling in, somebody's trying to feel what this experience like end to end. And I think that's what I try and bring to the job every single day is that point of view with the intent of just being better, right? I mean, I always remind my teammates that I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to create the best experience that we could possibly deliver by bringing these things up. And then we make business decisions, right? In terms of what we can really do. But generally, people are really receptive to that, but it's not how most people think. Most people are compensated and driven by goals for the department to get things out, but they don't really think about that overall experience.
Yeah, so making business decisions that are good for the customer, but also good for the organization. It seems like it just requires like a different mindset, a different lens.
Yeah, I think a lot of places, even with some of my team here when I got here, they think about what they're, they got hired to do a job. They're going to do that job to their best of their ability. Everybody's motivated. Everybody wants to do well by the customer, but it's very narrow in their approach. And they actually create their own silos and create their own, barriers, if you will. And so one of the things that when I joined Calix, I challenged my team to say, how well do you, even just within my team, I have our success team, our services team, our support team, and our renewals team. And I said, could you run your colleague's business? Do you know enough about the points? And we're all on the same team, right? You're under the same leadership. And they just didn't really knew. They knew where their thing picked up and ended, but not to the next step. And so part of it is challenging the leaders to say, think end to end. Don't box yourself in. Even when you go to solve problems, everybody's short staff or has budget constraints. And I'm like, well, why are you only thinking about this solution from your silo? How about if there's somebody on our team that works for us that we said this is going to be the biggest thing that we could do that would be impactful for our customers, that we do that, right? And we step out of this constraint, this self-constraint. So I think part of it is removing self-constraints where possible and putting the customer at the center. And I think when customers hear you acknowledging what you're trying to do, I mean, that's well received, right? You can create great relationships when they see that you're actually really trying to do something for them, align with them, and execute on their behalf. And I'd say that these customers that I'm dealing with, they expect a personal relationship because that's how they do business. So it's fun. It's been a great challenge, but it brings its own unique set of challenges as well in terms of some of the size and scale challenges they have.
But how do you scale that personal relationship, John? Is that a challenge for you?
Well, of course, and we've been talking a lot about that is people, I think even in bigger companies, people get used to, hey, Blake, I know you. I can trust you. I can count on you. And so that's, they love that. So what we really have to do is say, do you trust the company and do you trust the experience that we're creating for you? And if I can demonstrate that the experience I'm creating for you may have different people involved, but if they all execute and they actually do, I try to move away from this handoff because handoff sounds like I'm, passing the responsibility. I say we need to do hugs, not handoff with our customer. So they feel one embrace to the next and they're taken care of. They're not feeling like they're being passed off. And so that's a key element is to be able to articulate how we're going to, execute on our hub strategy with our customers in order to scale, right? Because we only have so many people and we need to be able to scale, but we don't want to lose the intimacy of that relationship. And it requires a couple things. One is people to understand the end-to-end execution plan, align around their strategies, and then pass the knowledge. I think this is where it sometimes falls down, is that, Blake, I may be there before you, but I don't really do a nice transition to you. And you come in and you ask all the same questions, or there's work that seems repetitive in the customer's eyes, and we really have to reduce that. And that's what CRM was supposed to do, right? So if it's working well, we know we can do that. But that's people using the tools that we have in the right way.
Right. Yeah. And it's like going to the doctor when they hand you a clipboard. It's the worst feeling in the world. So, like,
Oh my
you're
goodness.
stuck.
Can you imagine that in 2024, that's still the process?
No, it's so annoying.
It's mind-boggling.
No,
Now, I went to a clinic that digitized the waiting part, though. That was amazing.
Oh, really?
So once they had the name, yeah, my son was playing a soccer tournament in college and he got injured and he had to go to a clinic. We walked in and there was some paperwork, but that paperwork then ended up with his name on a board with a countdown timer. Not only how long has he been there, but how long before he'd be taken care of. And then the whole rest of the process was digitized. They took that, which I thought, that's amazing. That's amazing. Right now, if the intake would have been digitized, that would have been even better. Meaning, they could have taken his ID or, taken that and just said, here's the ID, check these 3 boxes on a tablet versus putting on a writing it down on paper. But, that was pretty good. And I wasn't in a big city when that happened. So there's signs that somebody's trying to go down this path.
I like that. That's great. I hope your son is okay, but I'm glad at least you had that experience. And it's like, in what we do, it's always just so exciting. Oh, wow. Like, somebody's listening. Like, look at this. They're using the technology like they're supposed to. Before we turn on the cameras, we were chatting about some of the challenges that your clients are seeing with just change management and transformation. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing out there, and what are you doing to help your clients move forward so it's not so tough?
Right. Well, many have, as I said, came from electrical cooperative or power cooperative, and they provided access, meaning, we connected to the house and that was the end of the job. And the experienced people was like, I expected to be on and work. And that was all the expectation was. Okay. There may be some services that they added, but I think as competition gets hotter and hotter, and there's, as you may have heard of, the BEAD Act, which is this Broadband Equality Act, which is funding internet broadband to every part of the country. It's like almost like the same thing that happened in the 1920s around the electrification of rural America. Okay. And so there's now players that will be paid, bigger players that will be paid to go lay down fiber, which could create more competition. And then the idea of competition is, how do we compete other than price? Price and speed is what they're competing on. And they're trying to transform away from that because they know that will not end well for anybody in terms of the economics and the relationship they would create with their customers. So they're trying to transform to creating a subscriber experience, offer more managed services. This is very foreign to how they've operated for 100 years. And so getting people's mind around, how do we make this transition? How do we think about the customer? How do we market to the customer? And we say not market, you're trying to disengage. You're trying to engage with the customer. And I don't know if you think about the services you bought when you bought broadband, it was probably about speed, right? How fast is your internet? That was the attribute.
There's only one player. We live kind of in a rural, in the mountains, and there's only one player.
Okay, well, so there you go. So they get concerned that they built this great network, and they want to say, they're technologists at heart, and so they want to say, here, look at the speed we brought to you. Mm-hmm. And what we're saying is, that's great, but as a consumer, I don't even know what that means, right? Yeah. I either know that it works, like we can have this Zoom call, this digital call, and either it's working well or it's not working, right? And so we're saying, well, what are those other services that you want to offer that customer? How do you appeal to that customer? So we've created a set of personas. Are you work from home? Are you a parent? And what are the objectives that you're trying to in those roles deliver, right? Or receive. And so we're saying even how you talk to your customers, don't talk about speed. Most people don't understand that. That's an attribute of your service. It's not the leading thing, right? And so we would say, hey, you're a perfect candidate for a work from home. You're running this podcast and you run your whole business from your house. Here are the things as a work from home that we would offer in this package. And we feel like that will really meet the buyer's needs in a better way. So even just thinking about how we market and pitch to the customers. And there's a lot of things that our customers do that they take no credit for in terms of creating this great service experience. I come to your house, Blake, and I test the internet, that I've set up the Wi-Fi that is getting really great connections. And I say, Blake, you spend a lot of time in your backyard. Oh, we should have an outdoor unit so your experience can go there. Well, we do all these things, but we don't tell you that when you go to, investigate us as an option. We should say, look, we do a free $200 test of your Wi-Fi to ensure that it has coverage. And we're just trying to say, like, these things you do that your customers don't even know about that they would really value. And right now, if you're the only provider, okay, you don't have to work that hard because you may have a monopoly, but that won't last forever. There are other solutions that people come in, and we want really to differentiate how you're delivering that service. So that's a big challenge for them, just in the mindset of positioning. They don't have a lot of experience doing that, or they don't have a lot of staff to actually execute on that.
It's interesting. This is exactly what I am talking about. It's the technology that you sell, but it sounds like even for your customer experience, it's so much more than it's the experience around the product that you sell. You are teaching your customers how to be better at their jobs, which doesn't seem to have a clear ROI. Is that something? And I sound like, so obnoxious asking, but like, is that something you've had to come up with? Okay, here's the ROI on spending all this extra time, or do you just know it's the right thing to do and your CEO or your boss like gets it?
So our CEO, I work with him at Salesforce. So he bought into this
Oh,
idea that if you have clouds, you better have a team that is, training people, helping them do adoption, deliver the business capability. They recognize that that was paramount to providers' success. So there wasn't a lot of pushback from the top. The top was really believing in it, right? Figuring out the economics and how do we fund it and how do we make sure we have enough. And I think across the leadership team, they all buy into what we're doing. I think I personally am driving it. I want to know whether our work is actually delivering value, right? As much as they, is not from a funding mechanism, but if I said to my CFO, if I can't explain to you the impact that my team is making, then you shouldn't give me any money, right? I should be able to produce that by saying, here are the engagements that I executed, right? And when I say engagement, I'm not just talking about professional services where we're actually paid. I'm talking about success engagements and saying, when I do these 25 engagements, here's what the success looks like from the client's perspective and our perspective. And I'm trying to map these things together so that we do get a good view of the value delivered, right? And you can call it ROI, whatever, but I want the attribution to be really clear. And we spend a lot of time determining how we're going to do that and tracking that. And I think that's the professionalization of our success industry, but where it needs to go, right? There's always been this question about how do you fund success, and I think there's a lot of work that has done, but I don't think what I'm thinking is I'm treating it more like a professional services organization. So
yeah.
when I execute, I know what I'm trying to deliver for the customer, and the customer should know that as well. I think in the past, success organizations have been like, let me just help the customer in any way possible. And,
Okay.
it was a little bit more bespoke. It wasn't as what I would say is as repeatable. And really, we're trying to get that repeatable. So we create that great experience with every customer we touch, right? And that's designing the experiences and, also designing these materials. We've created all of the marketing materials that a customer would need to use for this. So they don't have to do it themselves. Why? Because we would like them to go fast. Because in a cloud situation, and it's a win-win. If they go and they get more customers, we both win. And that's what really, that's why I took the job with these cloud companies. I wanted to be in a win-win situation. So I only win if the client wins. That's a great situation to be. I can sit on the same side of the table as the customer and they feel like I'm part of the team, not somebody who's benefiting even when things don't go well for them.
Right. Yeah. It seems like a complete mindset shift. And you either seem to get it or you don't. If you get it, you guys came from Salesforce. So Calix is so lucky to have you. I mean, it's just easy. It's a no brainer. It's the gift,
Right.
the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, look, it's a cost that comes into a P&L and people are trying to figure out how to justify it, who should pay for it. Cost of sale is easy to figure out, right? How many salespeople and what you're selling there. We need to come up with the equivalent on our end. And I think we have opportunities to do that. And that's, again, the maturing of this side of the business so that it can be demonstrated like any good business is run.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. And your business is so interesting that I think a lot of our audience, though, that also have B2B business models, hopefully they'll find this a breath of fresh air that, yes, if you invest the time, you care about the client experience, you put the client at the center of everything you do, your business will grow and you will be set apart.
Right. Well, it's the relationship that you create with these customers that they're willing to take chances on new things, right? Because you've been there in the past. I mean, and they're willing to give you a pass when you make a mistake. Um, if you've done everything, and like I would say, our customers have been fabulous. Like any cloud company is going to have blips in reliability, performance, whatever. Um, I think if you've built and demonstrated that you are customer centric and you are trying to deliver the best you can possibly be for them, um, they give you a pass, and because they want you to be successful, right? They're not cheering against you. If they're angry, it's because they want you to perform even better. And I take that challenge, and I'll take those hard calls and take that feedback because it's just going to make us better. I don't shy away from it, right? Somebody said we have problem customers. I said we never have problem customers. We made a promise to a customer and we didn't execute on it. That's our problem, not the customer's reaction to that. The customer's reaction to that is because they trusted us. And so I think that's, I always, going back to, if I was sitting in their shoes and I trusted you and then you didn't deliver for me, what emotion would I expect? I would expect to be
Yeah.
upset, right? Because at the end of the day, they have a job, they have to execute, and somebody's going to call them and saying what happened. And they say, well, you pick this vendor, and then everything gets called into question. So I don't think they're out of line to give us hard feedback and challenge us. I think that this makes us deliver better products.
Well, that's a great outlook. And I think if you welcome that, you're going to have a lot better success and results than if you fight it or you hide from it. I think that's a really great note to wrap on. How do you feel about taking some rapid fire questions, John?
Oh, I love it. Let's go.
Okay, perfect. All right, John, what's the most important part of your morning routine?
My workout. So exercise. First thing in the morning, got to get my exercise in because I know the rest of the day can go crazy, and I it's time for myself, and so that's every day. Start with that.
What do you do to relax at the end of a hectic day?
Um, Probably reading is checking on the newspaper or books, magazines. Just that's my wind down at the end of the day.
And what show are you currently streaming?
Suits. I think I'm in season 6, but only when I'm on the
Okay.
plane. That's my okay. I have a couple hours to kill, and I might not work. I save it for the plane rides.
Oh, that's fun. All right. What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Oh, perfect happiness! Wow, that is probably probably going on a hike in Maine. That might be perfect happiness, and then having a good meal. I think that would be with family. It would be great.
All right. What's your favorite type of vacation?
Any kind of travel to a new place, new culture, adventure. I think that would be it.
And if you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
I would say Barack Obama. I think
Hmm.
here's a guy that was president. I think he's articulate, interesting, and I'd love to hear his thoughts on that. It's a hard job, and he seemed to manage it well.
And if you had to describe your outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
I would say this is that everybody's intention is positive. And so never forget that when you're interacting with people. People are all trying to do the right thing and lean into that.
That's great. All right. Well, this has been so interesting, and I hope you'll come back and we'll talk next year about all the great things you're working on. And I wish you continued success, John.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on the program. We really enjoyed it.
Well, everybody, you've been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. Thank you for watching and listening. Until next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on social media, including Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and more.